Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Unsolved Crimes and Mysteries Iceberg. Now, I know I just finished up the entirety of the disturbing books Iceberg, and even though I'm sad to see it go, I'm excited to move on to a new project, so let's get into this. Jack the Ripper was an unidentified serial killer active in the largely impoverished areas of London in 1888. His victims were solely female prostitutes who worked in the slums of London, and they were found with abdominal mutilations and slit throats. 3 of the victims had their organs removed by the killer, but with pristine precision. So pristine that it is assumed that Jack the Ripper had medical knowledge or a medical background. The name Jack the Ripper originated in a letter written by an individual claiming to be the murderer that was disseminated in the media. This letter, which is referred to as the letter, quote, from hell, was received by a man named George Lusk of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, and it came with a half-preserved human kidney, supposedly taken from one of the victims. During his reign of terror, Jack the Ripper accumulated a total of 5 victims. To this day, the murders were never solved, and the legends surrounding these crimes became a combination of historical research, folklore, and pseudo-history. The Zodiac Killer is a pseudonym of a serial killer who operated in Northern California in the late 1960s. The case has been described as the most famous unsolved murder case in American history, becoming a fixture of popular culture and inspiring amateur detectives to attempt to resolve it. The Zodiac murdered 5 known victims in the San Francisco Bay Area between December 1968 and October 1969, operating in rural, urban, and suburban settings. The Zodiac Killer originated the name himself in a series of taunting letters and cards that he mailed to regional newspapers, threatening killing sprees and bombings if they were not printed. Some of the letters included cryptograms and ciphers in which the killer claimed that he was collecting his victims as slaves for the afterlife. Of the 4 ciphers he produced, 2 remain unsolved and 1 took 51 years to crack. One of the unsolved cryptograms supposedly holds the identity of the Zodiac Killer. While many theories regarding the identity of the killer have been suggested, the only suspect authorities ever publicly named was Arthur Lee Allen, a former elementary school teacher and convicted sex offender who died in 1992. The murder of the Grimes sisters is an unsolved double murder that took place in Chicago, Illinois on December 28, 1956. When 2 sisters named Barbara and Patricia Grimes, aged 15 and 12 respectively, disappeared while traveling from the Brighton Park movie theater to their home in McKinley Park. Their disappearance initiated one of the largest missing persons investigations in the history of Chicago, and the girls' nude bodies were discovered alongside a deserted road in Willow Springs on January 22, 1957. Although the sisters' autopsy reports concluded they had been murdered within 5 hours of their last confirmed sighting, and that both girls had died of secondary shock, numerous individuals attested to having seen the girls alive in the weeks between the night of December 28th and the subsequent discovery of their bodies. The murder of the Grimes sisters has been described by authors as a crime that, quote, shattered the innocence of Chicago, and remains one of Chicago's most infamous cold cases. Martin Luther King Jr. was an African-American civil rights leader who was fatally shot in the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee on April 4, 1968. James Earl Ray, a fugitive from the Missouri State Penitentiary, was arrested on June 8, 1968 and charged with the crime. On March 10, 1969, he pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 99 years in prison, but he later made many attempts to withdraw his guilty plea and to be tried by a jury, but was unsuccessful. Ray died in prison in 1998. The King family and others believe the assassination was a result of a conspiracy involving the United States government, the mafia, and the Memphis police. They believed that Ray was a scapegoat. In 1999, the family filed a wrongful death lawsuit for a sum of $10 million. During the closing arguments, their attorney asked the jury to award damages of $100 rather than $10 million to make the point that it was, quote, not about the money. Based on the evidence, the jury concluded that the government agencies were, quote, part of the conspiracy to kill King and awarded the family $100. Bob Crane was an American actor, drummer, and radio personality known for starring in the CBS comedy Hogan's Heroes, a series that aired from 1965 to 1971 and earned Crane 2 Emmy Award nominations. Crane's career declined after Hogan's Heroes. he became frustrated with the few roles that he was being offered and began performing in dinner theaters. In 1975, he returned to television in the NBC series The Bob Crane Show, but the series received poor ratings and was canceled after 13 weeks. But Crane was also living a secret second life. During the run of Hogan's Heroes, the producer introduced Crane to John Henry Carpenter, a regional sales manager from Sony Electronics who often helped famous clients with their video equipment. The two men struck up a friendship and began going to bars together, where Crane attracted many women due to his celebrity status, and he introduced Carpenter to them as his manager. The two men would have joint sexual encounters with these women and would also secretly videotape their escapades. In June 1978, Crane was found bludgeoned to death in his Scottsdale, Arizona apartment while on tour, and to this day, the murder remains officially unsolved. His previously uncontroversial public image suffered due to the suspicious nature of his death, and the details of his second life began to resurface. The Tunguska event was a tremendous 12-megaton explosion that occurred near the Tunguska River in Russia on the morning of June 30th, 1908. The explosion over the sparsely populated area flattened an estimated 80 million trees over 2,000 square kilometers of forest, and eyewitness reports suggest that at least 3 people may have died in the event. The explosion is generally attributed to a meteor airburst, which is the atmospheric explosion of a stony meteoroid about 50 to 60 meters in size. It is classified as an impact event, even though no impact crater has been found. The object is thought to have disintegrated at an altitude of 5 to 10 kilometers rather than to have hit the surface of the Earth. The Tunguska event is the largest impact event on Earth in recorded history. Tupac Shakur, professionally known as Tupac, was a highly successful American rapper who was murdered on September 7, 1996 in a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas, Nevada. The shooting occurred at 11:15 p.m. when the car carrying Shakur stopped at a red light. Shakur was struck by 4 .40 caliber rounds from a Glock, 2 in the chest, 1 in the arm, and 1 in the thigh. He died from his wounds 6 days later in the hospital. The murder was widely believed to be a result of a gang altercation that Tupac was involved in earlier that year. Christopher Wallace, better known by his stage names the Notorious B.I.G. and Biggie Smalls, was a famous American rapper. He was murdered on March 9, 1997 in a drive-by shooting where he was shot 4 times. In 2006, Wallace's mother, his widow, and his children filed a $400 million second wrongful death lawsuit against the Los Angeles Police Department, alleging that corrupt LAPD officers were responsible for Wallace's death. Retired LAPD officer Greg Kading alleged that Marion Knight, the head of Death Row Records, orchestrated the murder and revenge for the September 1996 killing of Tupac in a similar drive-by homicide by gunshot. After the murder of Tupac, a East Coast-West Coast hip-hop feud was sparked, and many believe the murder of Biggie was a retaliation that resulted from the murder of Tupac. Both the murderers of Tupac and Biggie are yet to be discovered to this day. Elisa Lam was a Chinese-Canadian tourist who was staying at the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles. A week after Elisa checked into the hotel, the other residents started complaining about how the water pressure had become very poor and the water had now turned into a murky orange color. Elisa first arrived at the Cecil Hotel on January 26th and was reported missing by her parents on February 1st after she failed to respond to their texts. A massive search through the hotel's premise was conducted, and a maintenance worker who was investigating the water tank due to the complaints found Elisa's lifeless body floating inside. To this day, no one knows who put Elisa in that water tank or what happened to her. There is a very infamous video of her in one of the hotel's elevators days prior to her disappearance, which shows her acting very strange, almost as if she is hiding from someone or something. Okay, for this next entry, the Red Room, I know that there are Red Rooms on the deep web where you can watch people be murdered live or snuff films like that, but that's not really a mystery, so I had to dig a little bit deeper, and I think I found something that might be what they're referring to. I'm just kind of taking a shot in the dark here. I think this makes sense because it's a cool mystery. The Red Room, or sometimes referred to as the quote, waiting room, was an extra dimensional space connected to the Glastonbury Grove in Twin Peaks Ghostwood National Forest. The Red Room was more accurately a set of seemingly infinite rooms and hallways, the only walls being the thick red velvet curtains that marked the division between the different sections. In one instance, the curtains lifted to reveal an endless black expanse beyond, the patterned floor stretching out into nothingness. The room is some kind of space paradox. where multiple realities meet. That's all I could find on this, but what I'm thinking it is from my research is that it's some sort of time wormhole. But apparently, dead spirits that live in the Ghostwood Forest live there, and they haunt the place, and some travelers stumble upon it, and then they find themselves in this time warp or something. The Dyatlov Pass incident was an event in which 9 Russian hikers died in the northern Ural Mountains between the 1st and 2nd of February, 1959. The experienced trekking group, led by Igor Dyatlov, had established a camp on the eastern slopes. During the night, something caused them to cut their way through their tent and flee the campsite while inadequately dressed for the heavy snowfall and sub-zero temperatures. After the group's bodies were discovered, an investigation by Soviet authorities determined that 6 had died from hypothermia, while the other 3 had been killed by physical trauma. One victim had major skull damage, 2 had severe chest trauma, and another had a small crack in the skull. The investigation concluded that a, quote, compelling natural force had caused the deaths. Numerous theories have been put forward to account for the unexplained deaths, including animal attacks, hypothermia, avalanches, military involvement, or some combination of these. Elizabeth Short, known posthumously as the Black Dahlia, was an American woman found murdered in Los Angeles, California on January 15, 1947. Her case became highly publicized due to the gruesome nature of the crime, which included her corpse having been mutilated and bisected at the waist. Short's unsolved murder and the details surrounding it have had a lasting cultural intrigue, generating various theories and public speculation. Her life and death have been the basis of numerous books and films, and her murder is frequently cited as one of the most famous unsolved murders in American history. But anyways, guys, that's the end of the first tier of this iceberg. I don't know how many videos I'm going to split this iceberg up into. There's a lot of topics and they have a lot of information to cover on them. The amount of support that the channel has been gaining lately is absolutely absurd, so I thank you guys for that. And if you took the time out of your day to watch this video, first of all, go and do something productive, but thanks for sticking around. And I hope you guys have a fantastic night, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.